But yeah, hi everyone. So welcome to the Diversity Matters event. I'd like to introduce this session's speaker, Yasmin Sheikh, who will be sharing her own journey and the importance of disability and diversity in the workplace. So welcome, Yasmin. I'm just going to pass it over.
Thank you very much for that introduction. So, hi everyone, I'm Yasmin Sheikh, lawyer, coach, trainer, and founder of Diverse Matters, which is a training consultancy to help organisations recruit and retain diverse talent, particularly specialising in disability. And my journey started really, it was on the 18th of March 2008 when I had an injury. I'm a wheelchair user. At the time, I was working in the city in a big law firm, international law firm, very healthy, 29 years old, fit, healthy, never smoked in my life, went to the gym probably 4 or 5 times a week, and living on my own at the time. And that evening on the 18th of March, I went to bed one day, and within probably 2 or 3 hours, my legs just stopped working. No warning, no accident, no idea what had happened. It was a complete bolt out of the blue. To cut a very long story short, I had to go to the hospital, and the neurologist said, if you come to me the day before, I'd say there's 0.001% chance of this happening. You will have to spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair. So turned my life and my family and friends' life completely upside down. Went for rehabilitation, where I had to learn how to do everything again, how to wash myself, dress myself, get around. And when you deal with the physical aspect, it's then the psychological adjustment. And those of you who have a disability or a long-term health condition will understand that if you've acquired that during, not born with a disability or impairment, you will sometimes think about the old you and the new you and life before and afterwards. And I certainly felt like that for a very long time. And my identity had to shift as to who was I now. So I spent about 3 months in hospital, excuse me, and went back to work after about a year. And it was quite difficult going back to work because I had both a good boss and a bad boss. I had a bad boss who told me within weeks of returning to work, he said, Yasmin, if I employed everyone with your disability, the business would collapse. I've got the same problem with part-time women workers. If I employed all of them, the business would collapse too. Needless to say, this guy did not get diversity, did not understand, as I believe, that everybody has a unique skill, adds value, can see something different, has a different perspective. And that's what makes diverse organisations really thrive, because people have different problem-solving skills that they can contribute to the organisation. He didn't really understand that. He would have employed everybody who was the same. But luckily I had a good boss, and the good boss was the global HR director, who saw that I was fascinated with the topic of unconscious bias, started blogging about my experiences. We had a gender equality and race and ethnicity groups, LGBT plus, in the firm. Nobody was talking about disability, even though we are the biggest minority group worldwide. And also disabilities, remember, includes not just those with visible disabilities. So it's not just sticks and wheelchairs, it's non-visible. So under the Equality Act, if you have cancer, MS, diabetes, dyslexia, some forms of depression, epilepsy, these are all disabilities, mental health conditions. These are all disabilities under the Equality Act, but sometimes we don't classify ourselves as disabled when we have a non-visible disability. So this is why it's really important it's put on the diversity agenda, disability, because actually includes a lot of us. 1 in 2 of us, unfortunately, will say in our lifetimes that we have cancer. So organisations, workplaces have to make adjustments for people because they're protected under the legislation. Other reasons that disability should be included on the diversity agenda is that, obviously, if there's disability discrimination, that is very costly for an organisation. It's expensive. More importantly, the reputation of the firm is tarnished as well if they have to settle disability claims. Also, in terms of employee productivity and satisfaction and morale, that will go down if the culture is such that it is not inclusive for people with disabilities and health conditions. So there's lots of reasons why disability is important, and we should have inclusive workplaces. Other things I can tell you, I'm actually the Vice Chair of Lawyers with Disability Division at the Law Society, and I do urge you, if you're not already a member of LDD, to join and become a member, because we have events that are running. We have a LinkedIn group and a Facebook group, so I do urge you to join. There's a lot of resources there that could help you if you have a disability or a health condition. Also, I've been involved through the Law Society with Legally Disabled, and you can Google their research. It's Cardiff University did some research, and they looked at disabled lawyers, and they wanted to look at their experiences in the legal profession. Now, interestingly, they've also, and you can read the full report and the recommendations they've made for a disability inclusive workplace. But interestingly, they've also looked at, in January 2020, they've looked at experiences of disabled lawyers during the pandemic. And what they've seen is that the most requested and refused reasonable adjustment pre-COVID was working from home or remote working, which is interesting, isn't it? Because we are now living at a time when most of us have to work from home. So suddenly these adjustments can be put in place. And I'd just like to end, because I know I've only got 10 minutes to speak, and please do ask questions at the end. I'm trying to pack a lot in here, but the future is exciting as well. I think it's where there's tragedy. Obviously, COVID-19 has been awful in terms of people who have health conditions or underlying health conditions have been impacted greatly. But also there is opportunity as well, because we can work from home. Disabled lawyers said that that has been beneficial for them during this time, because they can manage their disability in a different way. Law firms traditionally are wedded to very traditional ways of working. It's kind of disabled people have to fit into almost an ableist organisation where they're set rules and the ways we need to work. Well, actually, when you work from home, you can manage your disability better. You can manage fatigue, pain, breaks better. As long as the work is done, then I think that's all that really matters. And it's how you manage it, and you do it in your own time. As long as the work is done and of a good quality, that's what's important. So I think the future is exciting in a way, because it does benefit disabled people in terms of how we can go forward and build a more inclusive workforce. So Uzma, over to you. I think I spoke for, I don't know how long, but tried to pack in a lot. I don't know if there are any questions from people.
Oh, bless you. No, thank you so much. That was great. And I know we've kind of run over in terms of trying to get the session done, so you did great, don't worry about it. But we do have a question from Victoria, and anyone else who has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box and I will be putting them forward. So Victoria's given a question, and Victoria says, so that people often talk about the making the business case for being diverse, particularly with disability. There is a trend towards showcasing special skills that your disability gives you that abled employees wouldn't have. And Victoria says she often feels that this dehumanizes individuals and leads to disabled individuals off only being as good as the special skills they can provide. So she'd like to know what your take is on what she said.
That's a very, very interesting question and an interesting perspective. Yes, you almost have to work twice as hard and prove yourself even more. And I think a lot of people, ethnic minorities, may feel this. People from a minority group may also feel that you have to work twice as hard to prove yourself, because you don't fit into that mold of what a, inverted commas, good employee looks like. So if you have a disability, you almost have to prove your worth twice. And unfortunately, it is a reality. You know, if people see me in a wheelchair, they might think immediately, this person it may be an issue. How is this going to work? So unfortunately, the reality is that I have to prove and that's just the society we're living in. I have to prove actually my disability gives me added value. So I urge anyone to reframe their disability. I know it's annoying that we have to do that because we should just be accepted anyway, but sometimes we have to go over and above, and it's sometimes a good way. The whole issue of disclosure and sharing your disability, some people say, well, how do I do that? Well, in your CV or an application form, if you want to share it, that's completely your issue. But you can reframe your disability and say, you know, these are the added skills that it's given me. And I'm sure if you think about it, you can make a list of at least 3-4 things that your disability has given you, that extra edge. You know, for example, problem solving skills, being very organized because you have to, because your disability may take time and you have to make the time count. So I've kind of gone off on a tangent, but I do understand your point of view. But I think the reality is that's what is expected. And that's the same, I think, with other minority groups as well, is that you have to go that extra mile, unfortunately. Oh.
Thank you. Sorry, I realized I was on mute. So in terms of, I think we've got another question. So if someone BAME is working from home and is a carer for a disabled, severely vulnerable parent, can the employer insist that they stop working from home and work at the workplace during COVID now?
So if the person is BAME,
Yeah,
and looking after an elderly, looking after a disabled person,
yeah. So they're
can
looking after a disabled, severely vulnerable parent. The person's asking whether the employer can insist that they stop working from home and work at the workplace during COVID.
I'm not an employment lawyer, so my gut reaction, and obviously don't quote, you know, you would need to ask, but it would seem nonsensical, firstly, to insist that that person comes into the office. I mean, there's still the advice is if you can work from home, work from home. I would like to think that would be encouraged, particularly if you have caring responsibilities and you're looking after potentially a vulnerable person. And if you go into work, you could possibly go home and infect that person. So I would like to think that employers, not even looking at the law, but having a conversation and a dialogue, explaining your situation. And if they are able to work from home effectively, I see no reason why you should force people to come into the office, especially given your situation. I mean, I know most law firms are not talking even yet about people coming in, let alone if they have caring responsibilities. So I think it's definitely worth having a conversation. And if actually to date you've been working from home efficiently, why should you have to go into the office? You've proved for the last good 7-8 months or whatever it is, you've worked efficiently from home. That's a compelling case to say that actually the status quo should remain.
Thank you. I'm just trying to see what other questions, because the is now going off. So Anne has said, often discriminatory actions are completely unintentional. So for example, my employer redecorated the offices and the colleague with very limited vision lost the landmarks he used to find his desk, the loos, the coffee room, and that's from a company that is progressive and is really working on diversity. I think Anne is sharing some really like examples. Another example, due to sight problems, I cannot mentally process text that has a watermark behind, but many systems have this as a default, difficult for a company to solve when all it does is buy software licenses for it. Thank you for those examples, and it's great to kind of like read up all about them. I just kind of, so sorry to kind of rush this. I just want to make sure that we can get through the other sessions as well. Does anybody have any remaining questions for Yasmin just before we finish the session? Just give that a minute just in case anybody has a last question. Great talk, thanks Yasmin. Okay, getting some thank yous there.
Oh, I'm looking at the chat now. I didn't look because it distracts me otherwise. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. It's very short and sweet, and this topic is huge. But I've got some resources for you. Do go to Legally Disabled, recommendations, join LDD, Law Society. I encourage you all to do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Yasmin. That was great. So that marks the end of this session, guys. So our next speakers are Catherine Woodward and Isaac Eloy. I hope I pronounced those names right. To join their talks, please exit the session and join the live sessions. So you can find that on the homepage or the sessions tab. So if you go on the sessions, you should be able to see all the sessions of people. So Isaac and Catherine are now speaking. So I recommend joining one of their sessions and hearing their talks. But thank you so much, Yasmin, for coming and for everything.
Yeah. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Yasmin Sheikh. We can continue the conversation. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take
Enjoy the
care.
rest of the evening. Bye.